but I'm sure you had a great time with Vicky Vic on Sports at Eagles Wings. Now it's time for us to talk about topical national issues. And today, on Eagles Outlook, the Eagle would be looking and feeling the pulses of the and position of the youth ahead of the 2023 elections. It's just a few days away, and about 38 days from now, or 37 days from now, we would have the 2023 elections, much awaited. And this election has been touted to be one that is youth-centric. The young population, listen to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, speak about it and say, look, over 70% of the voting population in the 2023 elections are between the ages of 18 and 49. So, well, the young people have this one. Let's feel their pulse. What would be the direction of the young people ahead of the 2023 election? Who better to tell us that than the president of the National Youth Council of Nigeria? We have with us this morning, Comrade Dr. Solomon Adodo. Comrade, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you, Eagles FM, for having me here.
We're glad that you are here. You too can be a part of this conversation this morning. Feel free to keep these numbers really close. When we open up the phone lines, you can join in and share thoughts with us. 09073530044 and 09087668888. You can send SMS and WhatsApp messages to 09097054450. Comrade Adodo, I'd love to start by asking how the new year has been for you and the National Youth Council.
The new year has been like any other year. It's just that this time around we are sustaining a stronger advocacy. We are looking at the angles of electoral violence and insecurity. So we started the advocacy last year, and we are upping the ante in terms of sensitization, in terms of visit to rural communities across the country, because the National Youth Council of Nigeria is a national body for all Nigerian youth within the Nigerian sovereign territory and in the diaspora. So we are passing the message. Nigerian youths came out en masse to get their PVCs in terms of registration, and we've seen that quite a number are turning up to collect them now that they've concluded the registration. But beyond getting PVCs, we want to ensure that we have a very peaceful electoral process. So that's how we've begun the year, with a very strong advocacy. And we are glad that Eagles FM has also given us this springboard to still reach out to the Nigerian youth, because we know several thousands, if not millions, will be impacted by the message we pass here today.
Well, this is what we are about. We're about making sure that Nigerians participate in the electoral process. They say it's time for change, and if that change must happen, it must begin by people putting their hands together to say this is going to work, and that's what we are about. Good to have you again. Let's quickly talk about the feeling or the pulses. We say we're going to feel the pulse of the youth. What is the youth? How does the youth, average Nigerian youth, feel currently with the situation of things in the country? The unemployment rate, the inflation rate, the insecurity. These are all problems or things that are, bothering most Nigerians. I don't know how the youth feel about this, because I mean, a great section of the Nigerian youth population were at home when they should have been in school last year for quite a very long time, about 8 months or so. On account of the ASU strike. Now there's a possibility that ASU might still be going on strike again. I heard the what's it called now? The counsel to ASU, Falana, speaking a few days ago, 2 days ago, and saying, look, if the federal government pays KONWA their monies or their withheld salaries, then they should expect something, and what else would ASU do? Except go on strike again. Now, I want to know what the position of the youth, or what direction the youth are going, and what they're feeling as we go into the 2023 elections.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'll talk about participation in the electoral process in terms of voting. At the dawn of democracy, we saw a situation where most of the people who participated, we had, of course, young people participating, but there was no strong awareness. It was these elders who fought with NADECO, CDD, and others who were, let me call them the strong bones, who also knew about the democratic process more, and they participated. And we also had a kind of level playing field, sort of, where people who ordinarily today we will call greenhorns were given and access to power or to leadership. And it was in that same instance you had people like the governor of Cross River State, Governor Donald Duke, then as a very young governor, I think at the age of 38 or so. Enlightenment continued. The 2003 election improved upon 2007, but never in the history of the Nigerian electoral process has there been a great youth awakening like this present time. And of course, this awakening started from the push for the Not Too Young to Run bill, which was done pre the 2019 election. That was not just for young people to participate in the electoral process in terms of voting, but also the push was for young people to be able to have a kind of free road to hold offices easily, considering the fact that barriers had erupted from the dawn of democracy in 1999 to that present time in 2018, as we're moving or coasting towards the 2019 election. A clear 20 years apart at that time. So there was the need for that push, and that push resulted in the enlightenment that we have today. And thankfully, with the introduction of the electoral reforms, we had more young people coming up to do their registration. The passage of the Electoral Act gave more confidence to young people who said, okay, it is not going to be a waste of time for us to get our voters card. It's not going to be a waste of time for us to participate in the electoral process. Looking at the Nigerian state in general, I'll tell you that young Nigerians are greatly disenchanted, not happy and not satisfied. It doesn't mean the government is not putting in effort. The government is putting in efforts, serious efforts, determined efforts, and sincere efforts at that. But like I always quote a title of a collection of essays by my SY Vice Chancellor, Professor F.S. Idachaba of blessed memories, good intentions are not enough. Mr. President came in with good intentions, but you see, we've not knitted everything together. And if I'll pick a strand, which you talked about, this issue of ASU and the perennial strikes we've been having, and then the binge of a long strike we had, which ended sometime in October, and then the breakup of the splinter group, CONUA, or the formal recognition, because CONUA has been in the shadows for some time, the formal recognition of CONUA by the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Now, after coming back to the classroom, I expect that the Ministry of Labor and Employment, the Ministry of Education, should do all in its powers to ensure that this 11th hour of the President Muhammadu Buhari presidency is not tainted, is not abused, is not denigrated, is not stained in any way by any other ASU strike. Whatever it takes, it must be held, even if it is by a strand. So the news filtering in that there will be a sort of segregation where people who subscribe to CONUA will be given better treatment, while those who were on the ASU will be dealt with. The father of the prodigal son welcomed everybody and said, oh, come, let's be together. Because at the end, it is your house. So we want to call on the Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngigi. Please place high premium on education. Whatever it takes. We see what has been devoted to subsidizing of petroleum products, right? And then we see what has been devoted to other sectors of the country. If it is just to paper the cracks, just to manage and window dress, let me put it that way, in this 11th hour, please, I want to call on the Ministry of Labor. They should do what is right. Students should not be sent away from school as a result of any crisis again. Nigerian youth have suffered enough. We were pained. Parents were pained. Even they themselves, they knew that they were pained. The presidency knew that it was injustice to the Nigerian youth and to the Nigerian student, keeping them that long at home. And then we had a situation where most of these big wigs had their children out of this country. You know, so it is a sorry state where most of the people who have been saddled with the mandate, because the president cannot be everywhere, the president delegates some of these things. So I will call on some of these individuals or officials that if you're given a duty, do it very well. Coming also to the issue of unemployment and poverty, we've seen that no other government, I would say very clearly, has given more attention to injecting funds to finance youth enterprises like this government. The Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, 75 billion, very lofty idea. It can only be akin to the UWIN program of the Jonathan administration. I think that UWIN program had a cap of 10 billion for all the time it ran, but this one is looking at 75 billion. But then what are the comparative levels of success of the UWIN program and the Youth Investment Fund? We saw people from the UWIN program setting up businesses, innovative enterprises that were thriving. Now we had a Youth Investment Fund, good intentions from Mr. President. I tell you one thing, that anything that concerns the youth, the President is ready to see how he can attend to it. We saw what happened during the Not Too Young to Run bill. Quickly it was assented to, and he pleaded, oh, youth, please allow me for this my second term. By 2023, I'll be handing over to you. Now we'll also come to that issue because it's part of the question. It's not just for you to be advocating.
Absolutely, I was going to come to that.
Good,
Talk
good.
About, yeah.
So now let me now trash this issue very clearly. You have a situation where we have had very lofty programs, but the impacts have been very minimal. Today, the CBN is embroiled in so much controversies, right? Because to the extent that the CBN governor was relating with Mr. President, and Mr. President was approving everything, because, oh, if the CBN governor comes, funds for entertainment, there was one, I think, mapped out for entertainment, either 300 billion or so. Who are the people in the entertainment industry? Young people. Whiskey, Davido, the actors and the actresses, all of them, young people. The president said, oh, let me find my way to buy my way into the hearts of these people. Let me do something for these young people. They approved the entertainment fund or entertainment revitalization fund to boost the entertainment industry. Ask yourself, where has that money gone to? So you find a situation where the CBN that is supposed to be channeling some of these things turned most of them to politicking, and you see we had a twist where the governor of the CBN clearly became partisan and said he wanted to contest for elections. We also had the Anchor Borrower Scheme and the NISAL funds there, NISAL, that should have reached out to youth. What we expected was a flourishing of industries, and not just in urban areas. The wealth of Nigeria is in the countryside. It's in the rural areas. So what was expected was a deluge, an influx, a flow, a push of funds to youth in this countryside, putting them, developing them. We also had the Renewable Energies Fund, which REA, Ministry of Power, was supposed to do, but the funds was to come from CBN. To what extent of impact? What we gathered is that big multinationals are the ones now taking advantage of the funds. Now, these are funds that should have helped startups, indigenous startups, create jobs. Maybe those who will be manufacturing solar panels, batteries, and all of these things, producing them in this country and creating jobs for the youth. We at the Youth Council have been emphasizing to move from potentials to productivity. Now, you have a situation where everything has been put in a tank, but the channels to move this water from the tank to where it is needed is faulty.
But that brings me to ask you, as a council, what have you done to ensure that these funds get to you, holding leadership accountable to, promises? When you say, oh, there's enterprise fund, there is entertainment fund, how were you able to ensure that, you follow through with this to ensure that these monies got to the appropriate quarters?
We are doing it even now with this avenue and this channel you've given us, and we thank you for this privilege. Advocacy. We can only speak. We will not go and begin to break the head of the CBN governor or go to any other ministry to say, Mr. Minister, we are tearing your arms apart. We can only speak through channels like this. Write to Mr. President, which we've done severally, particularly on the Nigerian Youth Investment Funds. We've written to Mr. President. We can protest, and of course we did embark on some protests recently on all of these matters, because our vision for a new Nigeria is a Nigeria that is built by the youth, a bottom-up approach, not a top-down approach. Because today, as we are moving or marching towards the 2023 general elections, everybody is looking at the presidential candidate. Oh, we are looking at Tinubu. Oh, we are looking at Peter Obi. Oh, we are looking at Atiku Kwankwaso. We are looking at Showore and the rest of them. Nobody is looking at what are the tools that this president that will come in will work with. How do we build the youth? How do we diffuse things down to the rural areas? Nigeria does not exist only in the Federal Capital Territory where the president is. There has to be a synergy between the presidency and the state government. So a whole lot needs to be done. We were looking at an approach that includes the youth. And I don't know when you will come to that question, but it still beats my mind and hurts my mind that as much as Nigerian youths are advocating and saying, yes, we will come out and vote, we do not have a clearly credible young person to say, this is the new breed we are bringing on board. We do not have any young presidential candidate that with proven track record, I know that there may be one or two that, but with proven track record that to say, this person has built institutions. And I was seeing a video by one of the speakers where he talked about the problem of Africa is that we just bring leaders on board and say, oh, this one is so good. His oratory is great, eloquent, fluent, excellent. He dresses smart. He knows how to do this. But has he built institutions? Has he built people? Has he built structures? So we've not seen young people that have built institutions, things that you can point to, right? Maybe a young man that ran Eagles FM well to become a world-renowned radio station.
This is where I'm going to help to halt you, because we had people who had come out to say, who were young people who came out to want to run for president. The likes of Kingsley Moye, came out. Fantastic young man who has done well for himself, in the area of business and enterprise. We have these people, Omoyele Shore, not so, he's in his 50s, done so well. Sahara Reporter is one of the platforms making Nigeria proud across the world, putting out information and content like that. We've seen these people now. In 2020, when the NSAS protests happened, people said, oh, it was time for it was a subtle revolution. Young people were going to stand up and rise up to the occasion to go after positions and become leaders. But apparently at this point, the way it appears, it seems like young people are just after what's going to fall out from the crumbs from the tables of these so-called established politicians and older politicians. Because if you look at it, you still have young people running around these old crop of politicians rather than try to position themselves for the life of me, I can't understand why in a country like Nigeria that has a youth population over 60% or even going to 70%, the Minister of Youth is a 60-plus man. Why do we have that? Why don't we have the youth positioning themselves for these positions? We don't even have to have a president. We need to have a Minister of Communication who is young, eloquent, vibrant. We need to have maybe, National Assembly members who are in their 30s. Just yesterday, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, stepped down. She resigned her position. In this country, we have 70-year-old people who are 80, going to 80, who are warming up to become presidents.
Now, I'll tell you something. Power is not given on a platter of gold. Power is not given on the plaint of sympathy either. You must fight for power.
So why are you not fighting?
Necessarily, because we are fighting at various levels. And of course, you also look at yourself from an individual perspective and also from a collective perspective, right? I've been to places before now, and people say, young man, you're so good. We like the way you run the youth council. We want you to run for president in 2023. And I looked, just like going back to that quote from that speaker, whose name I can't get now. What institutions have we built? I must assess myself. Youth Council today has had a paradigm shift from where it used to be, from the way things used to be done. But in my own estimation, and also in the estimation of the public, what degree of penetration and impact have we made at the grassroots? I have not seen that. So that is how I rate myself. I have not even gotten up to, let's say, 40%, which is the pass mark, by rating myself as the president of the Youth Council, because of certain factors that have held me back.
What factors?
If I cannot, if we begin to talk about these factors, it will take a whole lot of time. Now, if at this point we have not been able to overcome, you must build your strength to overcome them, and which we are working on overcoming, and which we are also working on a deeper rural penetration, so that the Youth Council should not just be about highest president wearing a suit or the state chairman putting on their fine linens and moving all around. It should be about us in rural areas where there was no power supply and saying, oh, we've come in here. And if I'll just give you a hint of some of these factors, all we wanted to do was to say, okay, our vision in the Youth Council is to move young Nigerians from potentials to productivity. If you do a vox pop, an average pick a Nigerian youth, even the one that did not go to secondary school, right? That's just been to primary school. Even the one that has not even been to primary school. Pick up all these ones that you call Almajiris and all. Give them a 1-month training, and you'll see what will come out of them. Then how much more those who've been to tertiary institutions, those who've been to secondary schools, people brimming with ideas. Look at the ones that have gone into cybercrime and all of them. Are they not people with great ideas? Can we not translate these ideas from negative aspects to positive aspects? An advert I keep referring to by Pirelli says power is nothing without control. So we've got potentials, but these potentials are not being channeled. We have been shouting ourselves for us. Bring all of these things together. Let's knit them. The solar power funds, the entertainment funds, this and that. Let's knit them together. Let's have this coordinated penetration in a rural area. Let's have some kind of productivity hubs. Let's look at the comparative advantages of the respective regions, so that young people will not be migrating from their villages to Abuja, their villages to Lagos, to go and cram themselves in some very dingy apartments and say they are hustling. And what are they hustling for? At the end of the day, you pick your little crumbs and it does not amount to anything, because the bus driver collects it back from you, the electricity bill company collects it back from you, nothing to show for it, whereas there is wealth in rural Nigeria.
So at the moment, we have presidential candidates, forerunners, or what do you call it, in the front runners, or the front presidential candidates. Four prominent candidates at the moment, and we haven't seen the youth probing these people and saying, what are you doing? What are you going to do for us? And putting before them what they want. As a National Youth Council, shouldn't you at this moment be engaging the presidential candidates and telling them this is what we want when you win, or if you eventually become president? We haven't seen such engagements. We've just seen the candidates going up, all around the country, gather young people and say to them whatever they feel like. Why don't we have an organized youth structure that says this is what the youth of this country want?
Now, you see, it's a two-way process, right? Two factors need to come together. You present a proposal, and at the other end, somebody is listening to what you want to say. We've written to all the presidential candidates to say, this is what we are expecting of you. Of all the people we've written to, we've gotten responses from quite a few, and we've met with them. And then we are also working towards having our position out there in public. You said something, and this is a fact. We've missed the first train. We cannot produce a young president today that's below the age of 50 or even 45. We cannot produce a young president, because you've mentioned that there are 4 prominent presidential candidates, and if I would want to go by the vox pop that's all around, you'll be mentioning Atiku Abubakar, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Peter Obi, and Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Am I correct? That's the 4 they're looking at. But then there are other presidential candidates that are also engaging with the youth and probing on some right places, like the presidential candidate of the SDP, Barrister Adebayo, right? You see, long before the issue of this oil theft was made very public, he kept on shouting and illuminating the minds of the masses and Nigerians. And he was vindicated last year. He has been engaging with the youth very deeply. We've written to him, and we've also had.
So why are the youth not rallying around this person who has their ears, or who they can really speak to? Why do we have the youth, lining up behind this person and saying this is the one that we want?
Now I will tell you one thing, and in conclusion on this aspect, because we will not just say this is the person. It has to be an aggregating thing, a kind of agreement, or maybe feeling the pulse of the youth. I will also point you to the candidate of AA, Major Hamza Al-Mustafa. We have known him to always speak about issues of insecurity in the country. Remember, he was the chief security officer to General Sani Abacha, who talked or said something about insurgency and insecurity, and which still stands till today. And he has talked about the solutions, he has talked about the origins, the scramble for the natural resources of Nigeria. So when you see banditry in the northwest, it's not because bandits want to brandish guns, it's because some Chinese folks are mining there, foreigners are mining. When you see insurgency in the northeast, it's not because of the mere surface thing you see, because of the minerals that are in Yobe State and all of those places that can turn Nigeria overnight. When you look at that Bakassi angle and so on, he has also exposed a lot. He talked about the issue of... So now, we are in our final phase of engaging with the candidates that are ready to engage with us. When we do these engagements, we will present this report back to the youth and get the feedback. Remember, we've not concluded everything about the elections, and things can tilt overnight. Things can change. You don't just say, oh, these are the main, everybody is looking at the what they call them, these campaigns they do, how do we call it, rallies, right?
Rallies, yeah.
Rallies in stadium, you gather people and they keep shouting, nobody is hearing anything incoherent. All you'll be hearing is say this one and say that one, is this or is that. Rowdy setting. At the end of the day, ask those people that go to those campaign points. They give them 3,000, they give them 5,000, they give them some cups of beans and rice and some packages and all of those things. And that is not the Nigeria we are looking at. So all these things, the noise and the rumbles that we are hearing at the 11th hour, the Nigerian youth will take a clear stand and will follow through. You said something here also, that we should be looking at having a cabinet of ministers that are young. Who is ready to sign a pact with the Nigerian youth to say, okay, this number of my ministers will be below the age of 40. Let's say 40% below the age of 40, or 50% below the age of 50. That will be relatively young. Remember, youth age ends at 29 by the UN standard. By the African Charter, it ends at 35, right? So if we're talking of real youth, we should end at 35. But if we're talking of people that are still young, middle-aged Nigerians, we can be looking at between 40 to 45. How many of them are we going to have as directors general? The Buhari administration has done quite a lot in terms of maybe having DGs, but we didn't have so many as ministers. We had Kashif Inua, or we still have him in NITDA. We have this our fellow in REA, Salihijo in REA, Rural Electrification Agency. We have quite a number of others. I think NIPC was also manned by a young person, and across board, quite a number of very strategic agencies manned by young people. We now need to stand and assert ourselves very strongly and tell these candidates, this is what we want. And like you have rightly said, we will dictate the terms and we will dictate the pace. It will be a pact between whoever will emerge, so that accountability begins from the first day, and we will run this government together, preparing that in 2027, a very much younger person will be on the ballot.
Can we hold you to this, to say before the election, which is just about less than 40 days away, that the Nigerian Youth, or National Youth Council, and young people in Nigeria would be able to speak directly to the candidates and tell them this is what we want, and hold them accountable to it as well?
You should hold us very much accountable to our words here. And let me tell you something. Leadership, power, is a strategic thing. If you start, if there's a saying, if you wake up too early, the dew of life will soak you. So that whatever we do will be at the 11th hour, and it will be with the full force of the Nigerian youth. We will follow it through, so that when we take a stand that this is it, before any deviation, it will be swift, it will be decisive, it will be direct and impactful.
All right, the conversation continues. Keep it here on your radio experience. You can count on
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Only 100 naira, you enter. Everybody can win. If you win, you win.
You get what you want buy, but you don't get money. Microwave, TV, I mean you want pay never bill. Download Yagabeat from any online store. With 100 naira, fund your wallet. Choose a plan for your Get Pass. Start spinning and winning. The player with the highest number wins the beat. Anything what you want buy, you can beat it and win it. Yagabeat, Nigeria's online marketplace.
You can call us on 091 3000 2014 091 3000 2014.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
From Milky Way to Earth, everywhere there's internet, you can connect with Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. Log on to our website www.eaglesfm.com. Follow and engage with us now on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok at Eagles FM Abuja, Instagram at Eagles FM 1023. Download our apps on your Android and iOS stores. Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can count on.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
This is Eagles Outlook on your radio experience you can count on. You can join the conversation. Call 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. We are this morning discussing the polls and the position of the youth ahead of the elections. My guest is Comrade Dr. Solomon Adodo, President, National Youth Council of Nigeria. You want to lend your voice to the conversation because we'd have to let him go as quick as possible because, the young people have a lot to do in this election period. They're being engaged everywhere. Let's bring in callers. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, please.
Good morning. Who's joining us?
Yeah, this is Comrade Haruna calling from Kuje.
Oh, Comrade Haruna, let's hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Good morning to the guests.
Good morning.
I think with the youth of Rivers in this election, I just want to assure Nigerians that the usual high numbers of between the loser and the winner will not occur this time around because that incident form as a way of using to manipulate elections. Well, thank God for this electoral act being signed by Mr. President. Then quickly, my case. I don't know. My question I keep on asking, I'm just seeing all these our presidential aspirants. They are not saying anything about this our fuel issue, the scarcity we are facing, the refineries. Nobody is talking about refinery. So we see anybody elected is going to just maintain the subsidy or what? I just want Nigerians I want Nigerians to look into this.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Haruna, thank you very much. Nigerians need to ask more questions when they see the presidential candidates or when they engage them. Ask those questions. Hello, good morning. Hello. Good morning. Sonny the Prince, is that you?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I think I've spoken well. But one of the areas I want to disagree with him is in the area of those who, the youth among the contestants. They make mention of there is no youth that have been able to build one or two institutions, one or two, establishments that he can actually, look at. But almost, Showing he has done that. He has been a Sahara reporter for a long time, and in fact, it's one young man among all the candidates, the presidential candidates, that is so vibrant and so intelligent, and I believe he has the ability to deliver. One thing in Nigeria today is that once you don't have money, your ambition might suffer a lot. So one of the things affecting people like Showele is that he does not have a deep pocket. And those old people, over the years who are 70, 50, and above, over the years, they have been able to make themselves billions of naira from the government coffers, and they can afford to spend any amount of money on election. And you'll be wondering, the salary of a president is not even much. So why are they spending billions of naira just to get that thing? What are they actually looking for? When the salary of a president for whole 8 years is nothing to write home about, why are they spending so much money? But at the same time, I want to say that leadership for me is not all about being young or old. It's all about having the leadership qualities to deliver. Because I can see some of the world leaders who are not young people that are doing well. But the Chinese president is doing well. The American president, Joe Biden, at 80, he's doing well. The Indian prime minister is doing well. So you see, for me, it's not all about age. Look at Yabelo, and Governor Deo Umahi. Governor Deo Umahi is doing better. Even though he's older, he's doing far, far better. So for me, sometimes it's not all about age. And if the youth want to take over, I think it's high time the youth come out to it, because power is not given. You must fight for it. And the old people are just fighting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you calling in, taking me. Let's wrap this up. You've heard from Nigerians. These are Nigerians putting out their positions on this, and for the first time, it seems like, look, this election is going to be different with the beavers and all. What would the young people take advantage of this to produce credible leaders? Like we mentioned earlier, 70% of the voting population in this cycle of election are young people. Would they really take advantage of this to produce credible leaders for Nigeria, or would they just be waiting for the crumbs, or running around politicians getting crumbs from their table?
This is a battle for the soul of our country, Nigeria, and we need a clear direction. Nigeria needs to rise to our true potential. Anybody who knows will tell you no Nigerian has a business with poverty. We've got vast lands, no food, relatively. We've got great minerals, and yet no resources in our own individual pockets. Wealth has been stashed in a lopsided manner, to the extent that just a pinch of Nigerians possess more than 90% of the population in terms of wealth, finances and all. So there's a whole lot we need to look at in this particular time. So first thing we will do is to tell Nigerian youths that, number one, we are happy that quite a number have come out to get your registration done in the period of registering for PVCs. We are also elated that INEC has rolled out a timetable to distribute this PVC. So we encourage everyone to go out and get your permanent voters card. Then again, we also need to look at the next phase, which is the voting. But before the voting, there is a factor. If you're doing an equation, the factor of violence and insecurity, the factor of campaigning in a peaceful and amicable manner, the factor of sportsmanship in the democratic process. We want to urge all Nigerian youths. Election is not war. We are battling for who will lead Nigeria forward, not who will kill Nigerian youths. We are battling for who will unite the country and look at the comparative advantages of the respective regions, and not to divide the country. So these are clear factors we should be looking at. We should come out en masse on the respective days of voting, vote peacefully and disperse peacefully. Whoever emerges as president, we still have a bounden duty as citizens of this country and as great patriots to hold that person accountable. And then, before we even get to the point of elections, we would have had a pact with these candidates, and hoping that whosoever aligns more with the youth will be the one to win. And we will hold this person to his words, and we will form part of the leadership team that will drive the new Nigeria. That is number one. And then we'll begin to prepare for future times where younger people can come in. age is not the final factor, it's just one of it. But why do we advocate more for young people to hold these offices? Because we've got energies, because we've also got a future to look up to, right? If you mess things up, you will be here to watch things throughout your life, and the ridicule stays with you. And if you do things right, also, you will be here to mentor the next generation of leaders. So these are all factors. Nigerian youth must arise for a great Nigeria. If Nigeria must be built, it is not in any distant time. It begins now with you and I. And we all need to do this by coming out to vote. We all need to do this by ensuring that we vote very peacefully. We all need to do this by ensuring that at all times we hold leadership accountable.
And that's a great way to end the show with the conversation with you, Comrade Dr. Solomon Adodo, President of the National Youth Council of Nigeria, speaking on the polls and position of youth ahead of the elections. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. We hope to speak more with you as we draw closer and closer to the election date.
Thank you very much, Eagles FM, for having the National Youth Council of Nigeria, and I'm sure from today the entire Nigerian youth will be on Eagles wings. Absolutely.
Let's go on Eagles wings. So, before we wrap up the conversation, we will be talking about, the tenure issue with the IGP, or bringing Barrister Jude Ezofor to share thoughts with us on that. And then you two can also be a part of that conversation. Keep it with us.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.